Hey guys, tonight we travel far across the windswept plains of Central Asia, past the last border stones through tall grasses that whisper ancient names, and into the heart of a Mongolian morning, where your home has no foundations. But it has wheels, ropes, and more wisdom stitched into it than most buildings ever learn. Your day begins in a yurt if you want to get the name right, nestled in the middle of the steppe. The air outside is crisp and dry, touched with the sharp scent of wild thyme and distant horses. Inside, it's wool warm and thick with the gentle musk of felt and fire ash. The circular walls hum softly when the wind pushes against them, like the world reminding you it's awake too. You blink into the dim morning light seeping in through the round roof, opening the tuno, and know instantly what kind of day it is. A moving day. And unless you're part yak or made of endless patience, you probably won't survive this routine. Because packing up your entire house in under an hour without yelling, bruising your fingers, or losing your patience, that's a level of domestic mastery few of us ever reach. But for a Mongolian nomad, it's Tuesday. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're still with me, I'd love to know, where are you listening from? And what time is it right now? Share it in the comments. It's a strange kind of comfort knowing who else is winding down under the same sky. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You rise from the padded bedding duct slightly to avoid the central roof supports and shuffle to the door. It opens not with a creak, but with a gentle flap, the felt curtain swinging aside to reveal golden light stretching across an ocean of grass. No trees, no fences, just wind dust and sky in every direction. The horses are already stirring. A foal noses at its mother. Somewhere a low whistle from a distant herder carries on the breeze. The kind of sound that's not meant for you but makes you feel included anyway. You kneel beside the fire pit at the center of the yurt. Last night's embers still glow faintly. You add a twist of dry dung and fan it with a woven straw fan until it flares back to life. Breakfast must be made, but it'll be simple milky tea, some air-dried meat, and a bit of arl, the hard sour curds that double as both snack and dental challenge. As the tea boils, you glance around the space. Everything has its place. Hooks from the walls hold iron kettles, ropes, and a curious array of braided ropes. A saddle rests near the door, flanked by a small wooden chest that rattles faintly when you move it, coins, bones. No one says, "That's private." And overhead, hanging from the central ring, is a small wooden amulet shaped like a galloping horse. It swings gently in the breeze, rising through the tuno, like it's already eager to move. Historians still argue whether the Mongols' housing style developed out of necessity or was a deliberate expression of their cultural identity, a flexible home for a flexible life. But when you live this way, the why doesn't matter. The how is everything. You finish your tea. The yurt has been your shelter, your stove, your shield. But it's time to pack it away. The day is long, and the road is calling. Your home must become a bundle. Your life must be mobile again. And somehow that's not a burden. It's a rhythm. You step outside, and the morning hits your face like a page from a storybook someone forgot to close overnight. The sky is obnoxiously perfect, wide, endless, aggressively blue. The grass under your boots is short, windblown, and filled with secrets. Somewhere in the distance, a flock of sheep is already scattering around a boy no older than 10, whirling a sling above his head like it's an extension of his mood. Back at your camp, the family's awake, not with yawns or alarms, but with motion. Intentional, seamless, practiced. There's no spoken command, no to-do list pinned to a fridge. Everyone just knows what needs doing, like choreography passed down through the bones. First, breakfast. Because even nomads need fuel before folding their universe into a cart. Someone hands you a wooden bowl. It's filled with Arag fermented mare's milk, the champagne of the steppe if champagne came with a side of surprise. It's tangy, fizzy, and just alcoholic enough to wake up your regrets from last week. You drink it anyway. It's rude not to. Beside you, an older woman in a russet robe stirs something in a blackened pot over a tripod fire. She doesn't speak, but she hums. You're pretty sure the tune is older than half the languages spoken today. Nearby, the family's animals wander, but not far. Yaks, sheep, camels, horses, each one somehow aware that today is a travel day. The camels blink slowly, disapprovingly. The goats chew with extra volume. And the lead mare, always the diva, stands apart with the air of someone reviewing her itinerary. You sip more Arag and try to memorize the calm, because soon this calm will become movement. The first real action of the morning happens almost like a sigh. The matriarch unties a length of braided wool rope from the inside of the yurt and steps onto a small wooden stool placed precisely beneath the center opening. With a graceful, practiced tug, she unlatches the circular roof crown, the tonneau, from its support poles. The moment it's freed, the top of the yurt breathes open. Light floods in, golden and dramatic, as if the sun has been waiting its cue. You blink up at the opening. Without the crown, the whole structure looks vulnerable, like someone's pulled the cork from a bottle or lifted the lid off a pot too soon. Now the air inside the GR changes. It swirls a bit more. The smoke and smells of morning rush upward and out like they're eager to join the sky. That circular crown, it's more than just a skylight. It's the heart of the yurt, the spot where heaven meets earth, where fire meets air, where dreams are let out and wisdom drips in. Historians still argue whether the symbolism of the tonneau predates shamanic practices or emerged alongside them, but among the nomads, nobody's asking. The meaning is, live not labeled. You help pass the wooden ring to another family member who wraps it in a canvas cloth and places it gently by the cart. It's not just structural, it's sacred. It must travel safely. The support poles that once held the ring aloft are next. Long, slender pieces of bent wood. They look delicate but have survived storms you wouldn't walk through. Each one is disengaged with a subtle twist, then stacked neatly like firewood with a master's care. By now, the yurt is starting to look less like a house and more like an idea currently being turned back into pieces and possibilities. You stand in the middle of it all, bowl empty, head full of quiet awe. This isn't just packing, it's remembering and rebuilding before you've even left. The light filtering into the dismantled yurt sharpens now, like it's suddenly eager to see what happens next. With the roof ring and poles carefully removed, the space feels both larger and more vulnerable. You're standing in what was a home 15 minutes ago now, a circular echo of itself, its felt shell sagging like the skin of a dream just waking up. Next up, the felt walls. Thick, heavy layers of sheep's wool hand-pressed and cured with smoke and wind dyed in subdued earth tones, teal, ochre, rust. Each felt sheet is unpinned from its wooden frame, folded with reverence and carried out like sacred cloaks. You try to lift one and instantly regret it. It's heavier than it looks, dense with memory and stubbornness. It smells of smoke milk and winter, and even though it's just wool, it carries the weight of 1,000 silent dinners, whispered stories, and one memorable argument about whether goats can feel shame. Verdict still unclear. The latticework underneath the khana is finally visible. It looks like a massive wooden accordion folded in on itself, waiting to be stretched and sung again. Interlocking slats of willow or birch bound at the joints with rawhide strips that haven't failed in decades. It's simple engineering but brilliant. Collapse it inward and it folds with elegance. Pull it outward and it expands into a circle of strength. You kneel beside one of the wall sections, fingers running along the smooth grain. Each slat carries a history, scratches sun-bleaching knots like fingerprints. No two yurts are identical, just like no two migrations are. The shape may be the same, but the stories whispered within, always different. You begin folding the khana, a satisfying zigzag of ancient geometry. It creaks softly like it's reminiscing. You stack one section, then another, until it becomes a tidy pile the height of your waist. Across the circle, a teenage boy folds the opposite wall. He hums something half-remembered and tosses you a grin, one of those you're doing fine for a visitor kind of expressions. Historians still argue whether this specific yurt design dates back to the Scythians, the Huns, or someone even earlier. But the Mongols perfected it so much so that Genghis Khan's mobile palaces used the same basic structure, scaled up for royalty and glory. Imagine this same folding dance, just with more attendants, more horses, and probably less airog. You glance back at the center of the space. Only a few items remain: a carved wooden chest, a loop of rope, and a small clay idol no taller than your thumb. The idol is lifted gently and wrapped in cloth. A private ritual invisible to outsiders. No explanation offered, none needed. The final felt layer is carried out by 3 people. It takes that many. They laugh as it flops over the edge of the cart like an exhausted beast. One child climbs on top and is promptly shooed down. You pretend not to laugh. It wouldn't be dignified. You help secure the folded wall pieces with leather thongs and short wooden pegs. Everything is lashed tightly. Every piece has its partner. It's a home rendered into a puzzle waiting to be reassembled elsewhere. One thing becomes very clear: this isn't improvisation. This is choreography. Every person knows their role, every movement echoes generations. Even the wind seems to pause, curious. You step back, looking at the now empty ring of flattened grass, where a home stood just an hour ago. There's no sorrow in it, only readiness. The land remembers even when the people move on. The cart groans as the last pieces of the ger are strapped onto its back, felt bundles, poles, wall lattices, the sacred roof ring tucked like a treasure beneath woven rugs. Two horses stand hitched and half impatient, flicking their tails and tossing their heads in mild protest. It's as if they too know the path ahead isn't just dirt and grass, but memory. You wipe your palms on your robe and turn to take one last look at the flattened circle of grass. Already it's beginning to rise again, the wind brushing it upward in tiny waves, as if the land is smoothing itself out, preparing for the next visitor, the next structure, the next story. A girl barefoot, saffron tunic stained with morning chores, hands you a thin rope. It's the lead to one of the oxen, pulling the second cart. You nod at her with ceremonial gravitas, which she returns by sticking her tongue out and bolting to her family's horse. Dignity is short-lived in this part of the world. You begin walking. Not fast, not slow, just steady. The entire caravan begins to move like a river winding out across the steppe in a loose ribbon of creaking carts, bobbing heads, and jangling harness bells. Some sing softly, others ride in silence. A boy taps a drum on a saddlebag. A woman balances a teapot on her hip as she strides unfazed. You fall into rhythm. One foot, then the other. Breathe in step. Breathe out step. The horizon doesn't move, but you do. And somehow that's enough. Overhead, the sky is wide enough to swallow regrets. The clouds drift like ancient wool, and the birds seem unbothered by any destination you might be heading toward. This isn't a road trip, it's a lifestyle. Historians still argue whether the Mongols' nomadic routes were seasonal strategies or spiritual alignments with cosmic patterns. You wonder why it can't be both. When you're this close to the sky, even the dust feels meaningful. You pass herds of wild sheep standing like statues on distant hills. The grass here is shorter, sunburned into a palette of browns and silvers. The carts groan again, but the animals know the way. This isn't new to them. At midday, the caravan pauses near a half-dried stream. Lunch is not a meal, it's a reorientation. Some crouch near the water, rinsing their hands and faces. Others unwrap small parcels of food, dried curd, smoked meat, flatbread folded like old maps. You find a patch of shade beneath a weathered boulder and sit down, stretching your legs until your knees stop complaining. A boy offers you a piece of salted horse meat with a grin. You take it and chew slowly, wondering whether politeness or bravery is more important in this moment. It's saltier than you expected, and chewier, like a friendship that starts with sarcasm. Nearby, someone is napping with their hat pulled over their eyes. Another tends to a bootstrap with a bone awl. The oxen rest like living furniture, broad, unmoving, quietly flatulent. You hear snoring. You're not sure if it's human or animal, possibly both. But in this place, rest isn't a break. It's part of the journey. The pause is the path. You don't hurry the step. It'll just trip you in return. As the sun begins to shift, casting longer shadows and gilding the grass in soft copper, you rise again. The caravan reassembles with the calm of people who have never questioned impermanence. Onward, because there's always a next place. And this right now is how you carry home with you. The shadows grow longer as the afternoon stretches onward, and the caravan hums along like an old song, passed from wheel to hoof to heartbeat. You don't speak much now. There's a quiet that settles over nomads once their stomachs are full and their direction is sure. The kind of silence that isn't empty, it's just full of everything unspoken. The path veers slightly uphill, and you feel the pull in your thighs as you ascend a low ridge. At the top, the view opens like a scroll. The landscape spreads before you, vast, undisturbed, ancient. Patches of sagebrush, tufts of silver grass, lines of animal tracks crisscrossing like forgotten signatures. Then just at the edge of visibility, you spot something strange. Circles, faint but unmistakable. Depressions in the grass that mimic the shape of your own camp from this morning. Old gers sites, abandoned seasons ago, maybe even years. The grass grows differently there, as if remembering how to shape itself around the people who once lived within those circles. You step closer, peering down. In one ring, you see a shard of pottery. In another, the charred remnants of a long-dead fire. The past doesn't haunt the Mongolian steppe. It simply lingers politely, like a guest who knows better than to interrupt. Historians still argue whether early nomadic families marked their old sites for spiritual reasons, or simply as landmarks. You prefer the idea that it's both. A whisper to the future, we were here, we will be again. By the time the sun slips behind a bank of slate-colored clouds, the caravan begins its evening dance, unspoken, automatic. The children are the first to scatter, chasing one another with reeds and laughter. A woman calls out a few sharp syllables, and they all veer left like trained sparrows. You take your cue and help with the unstrapping. This is the part that fascinates you most, the reassembly. Piece by piece, like a memory unfolding. The poles are laid out first, forming a skeletal ribcage on the grass. Then, the kana, the accordion walls, are stretched outward and connected at just the right point to allow for airflow, but still shield against the wind. The door frame is placed next. Carved from elm wood, its top bears small notches, one for each child born in this very ger. A counting system with sacred intention. You catch sight of the sacred roof ring again. The tuno now freshly unwrapped, its curves polished by both sun and generations of hands. Two people lifted above their heads like an offering. It's returned to its rightful place, secured by two long curved beams that resemble outstretched arms. Then come the poles. One by one, each slotted into the ring above and the wall frame below, until the interior feels like a forest of slim trunks holding up a sun that hasn't yet returned. You help toss the felt layers over the whole thing. They land with weight and grace like a woolen sigh. The wind picks up, flapping the edges until they're tied down with thick cords. Inside, it's already warmer. The floor is recovered in worn rugs, thick cushions, folded blankets, the low wooden table, a few baskets with cheesecloth tucked over them. In one corner, a saddle leans against a bundle of clothing, and in another, a boy is already pretending to sleep. You step outside to stretch your back, watching another family finish their ger, then another. One by one, little domes blossom across the ridge like oversized mushrooms after rain. You're not just rebuilding homes, you're replanting a village. Night doesn't fall on the steppe it rolls in. Slow, steady, velvet dark. You watch it creep across the horizon like ink spilling from a quiet hand. One by one, stars begin to blink awake. Not scattered, but arranged like elders watching from above, nodding silently as the yurts below glow with soft amber light. Inside your temporary home, the hearth has already been lit. It doesn't roar, it murmurs. The fire crackles gently beneath a cast iron pot suspended on a wooden tripod. Inside, something that smells of garlic milk and onions, though smells is generous. It wafts more than it radiates, teasing you without full disclosure. You sit on a rug, legs folded. Across from you, a woman with silver-threaded braids ladles out a steaming portion of stew. She hands you a shallow wooden bowl without ceremony, and you accept it with both hands like it's sacred. It might be, because after a day like this, anything warm becomes a sacrament. You eat slowly, spoon clinking softly against the side. The stew tastes earthy, salty, slightly sour, probably fermented, possibly goat. You decide not to ask. Somewhere in the ger, a child drops a spoon. No one reacts. Somewhere else, a dog yelps and is promptly shushed by a lullaby. You lean back, stomach full, limbs heavy, and take in the interior. Above you, the lattice shadows dance like tree branches thrown askew by the firelight. The smoke finds its way upward through the roof ring, tuno escaping, without being asked, like a ghost that knows the exit. Historians still argue whether the design of the tuno was influenced by sun worship, astronomical alignment, or just really good airflow planning. You like to think it's all three. Practicality and poetry don't cancel each other out here, they're neighbors. After dinner, there's tea, always tea, boiled in milk steeped with brick-shaped leaves that were once part of a caravan 10 cities ago. The first sip is like velvet, and bitterness had a baby. It makes your mouth pucker, then sigh. You're handed a bowl, not a cup. Porcelain numbric wood, worn smooth by years of hands, lips, steam. You hold it carefully. The heat seeps into your palms like it's asking for a moment of your time. You give it, gratefully. Around you, the ger quiets. Voices drop, movements soften. You're not being told to sleep, but the environment encourages it with gentle nudges. Someone begins tuning a morin core, the horsehead fiddle. 2 strings, a bow made from horsehair. The melody that follows is slow and spiraling, the kind of sound that makes you feel like you're moving even when you're still. You close your eyes. In the distance, the horses shuffle and huff. The wind scratches at the felt walls. A baby murmurs in sleep. And under it all, the fire hums. This isn't just shelter. This is architecture designed for dreams. You wake before dawn not because of noise, but because of quiet. The kind of quiet that's so deep, it feels like you've fallen into it rather than emerged from sleep. The embers in the hearth glow faintly. A single line of smoke spirals upward like a thought unfinished. No one's speaking. Yet there's movement. A silhouette crosses the interior, bare feet on rug-practiced hands, arranging the morning's firewood setting, a blackened kettle above the coals, like it's a ritual, not a routine. You watch without stirring. And then, as if summoned by the thought, the wind begins. Not harsh, not loud, just enough to remind you that the world outside still turns. Outside, the sky is turning pale violet. You slip into your boots, hard-soled fur-lined, and push open the felt flap. The air kisses you awake with its chill, and your nose wrinkles involuntarily. Welcome to morning in the steppe. People move with soft purpose. No one rushes. The sun hasn't given permission for urgency yet. A girl scatters seeds for chickens you didn't know existed here. A man sharpens a knife against a whetstone, pausing between strokes, like he's listening for a cue. A dog, one of those giant, fluffy breeds that looks half lion, stretches and trots away as if on patrol. You stretch too. Your back complains. Your knees whine. But your lungs? Your lungs sing. Because the air here is made of memory and horse sweat and clouds that never learn to hurry. Breakfast is modest. Flatbread with a hard cheese that threatens your teeth, but rewards your stubbornness. A smear of fermented cream. More tea because tea is non-negotiable. And then, packing begins again. The gers is taken apart with the same reverence it was built. There's no chaos. Every item has a place. Every pole has a name. The roof ring is lowered gently, almost ceremonially, as if thanking the sky for one more night of cooperation. The walls fold inward like an accordion played by time. Felt rolls, ropes bind, buckles snap shut. You help again this time with more confidence. Your hands remember, your muscles understand. This is a dance and you've learned the steps. Historians still argue whether this daily mobility fostered resilience or simply reflected necessity. Someone mutters nearby, half joking. You smirk, because it's obviously both. You load a cart and notice a small detail you missed before, a charm tied to the axle. A bundle of colored threads, a carved piece of bone, a sliver of mirror. For good fortune maybe, for direction, for remembering. The caravan stretches again, this time toward a forested slope in the east, where trees huddle like gossiping elders. The terrain shifts underfoot from flat step to soft incline, and your steps adjust. You pass a fox, or maybe it passes you. It glances unreadable and vanishes into the brush like a half-finished thought. By noon, the trees thin and a meadow opens, the perfect place to stop. Again, without words, the caravan slows, circles, breathes. The homes will rise again, and you smile already, knowing where the door will face. The meadow welcomes you like it's been waiting all along. A patch of earth slightly raised from the surrounding grass, dappled with wildflowers that seem to blink open under the warming sun. The horses fan out, instinctively, tails swishing at invisible flies. The dogs collapse in fur-padded heaps, already snoring. And you inhale deeply and begin to prepare the space where your home will bloom once more. The same choreography begins. The kana is unfolded, the roof ring lifted, the poles slot in almost magnetically. The felt layers are heaved and wrapped, and again the whole structure tightens into its familiar round shape, resilient, humble, dignified. But this time, something's different. A breeze carries the scent of pine resin from the nearby trees. The grass is thicker underfoot, a little springier, and nearby a stream laughs over stones, offering water without complaint. Inside, rugs are unfurled again now, with a few pebbles shaken out from earlier travels. Someone chuckles as they find a wildflower pressed into a woolen fold left behind from the last stop, or maybe stashed by a child for luck. As midday approaches, you rest on your heels and let your eyes wander. From this angle, you can see the other gers rising again, like a constellation forming. One dome, then another, and another, each one anchored by memory and motion. And that's when you spotted a child leading a sheep with a string of bells around its neck. The bells are mismatched, one brass, one wood, one painted blue, but together they chime a lazy tune as the sheep trots along. The child sings to match, off-key but confident. It's absurdly charming. You can't help but smile. Lunch is a bit more celebratory today. Someone found a cache of dried apricots. Someone else traded for pickled root vegetables in the last market town. There's even talk of a fermented mare's milk toast later. Yes, the fizzy kind that makes your cheeks buzz and your head tingle like you've been tickled by a cloud. You recline against a saddlebag and sip broth from a horn cup. A nearby woman is weaving. She hums while she works, fingers moving so fluidly it seems like the pattern is choosing itself. Threads of indigo and russet flicker through the loom like flame. The design is abstract to your eyes, but you sense a rhythm. Hills, hooves, perhaps a storm. Historians still argue whether Mongol weaving patterns were symbolic maps, spiritual charms, or just aesthetic choices. You suspect the answer lives somewhere between function and feeling, as it often does out here. Later, when the sun leans westward, you explore the edge of the forest. There, beneath a knot of birches, someone has built a small shrine. sticks arranged in a triangle, feathers tied to the branches above, a clay figure with one missing arm half buried in moss. You don't disturb it. You just nod and walk on. By the time you return, the air has cooled again. People cluster around fires, sharing stories with soft voices and big gestures. No one tries to impress. No one pretends to know more than they do. There's honesty here, not in words necessarily, but in presence. The wind picks up, the grass sighs, and someone strikes the first note of a long, slow song about a herder who fell in love with the moon. It's heartbreakingly beautiful. You don't understand the words, but you understand everything. Night returns with its familiar hush, folding the meadow into quiet shadows. The stars come faster this time, as if they've been practicing. You step outside the ger bowl of hot milk in hand and tip your head back. The sky stretches without edges, studded with pinpricks of light so sharp they look carved. Somewhere behind you, laughter peals from a fire circle. Someone tells a story, something about a fox that outwitted a shaman, and the punchline lands with a roar of amusement and a slap of palms on thighs. But you're here at the edge of it, savoring stillness. The dogs lope past you again, tails swaying like metronomes. They pause long enough to sniff a bush and then vanish into the tall grass. You wonder if they dream in barks or in smells. The ger behind you pulses with firelight, its seams glowing like stitched gold. A child's silhouette bobs against the felt, chasing something imaginary or perhaps very real. Imagination and reality aren't always at odds here. Sometimes they shake hands and split a bowl of tea. You sip your milk and settle onto a log. A man joins you. He doesn't speak, just nods. You nod back. Two humans sharing heat and silence. Nothing performative, nothing strained, just the simple act of witnessing the same moon. After a while, he offers you a dried fruit. You accept. It's chewy and tart and sticky on your fingers. And as you eat it, he begins to hum. Not a song, not really. Just a sound low and cyclical, rising and falling like a breeze through hollow bone. You close your eyes. It vibrates somewhere deep in your chest. You don't hum back, but you do breathe with it. Match its tempo. For a few moments, you're not in the 21st century anymore. You're just a pulse inside a shared rhythm. Eventually, the hum fades. The man stands, pats your shoulder once, and disappears into his ger. You remain. Let the breeze pull your hair. Let the crickets speak their static poetry. Let the fire crackle out in its own time. Historians still argue whether these communal silences were cultivated as a form of social cohesion or simply born from long hours in big open landscapes. But it's not that the steppe demands quiet. It's that it offers it. And sometimes the best thing you can do is accept the offer. As you finally rise and head back inside, the flap rustles behind you. The fire has settled into embers. The rugs feel warmer than they should. Your bones sigh as you stretch out. Tomorrow will bring more writing, more folding, more songs sung to no one and everyone. But tonight you've been sung to. Not with words, with presence. And you're full of it. Morning arrives like a hush before applause. You wake to soft golden light pushing through the seam of the ger dust motes, floating in its path like slow-motion snow. Outside, the world hasn't quite stirred yet. No footfalls, no voices, just the hum of a wind thinking about becoming a breeze. You stretch under a thick felt blanket and glance around. The kettle from last night still hangs above cold coals. A pair of boots waits obediently by the door. Someone has left a folded scarf nearby, wool-striped, still smelling faintly of mare's milk and sun. Outside, frost crisps the grass. You crunch through it barefoot for a moment just to feel something ancient. Your toes tingle, scream, and then accept. You last maybe 10 steps before ducking back inside, grinning like a maniac. It's a ridiculous ritual, but it's yours now. Today the camp doesn't move. There's no packing, no loading, no dismantling homes like magic tricks. Instead, it's a rest day, though you'll quickly learn that rest is a relative term. There's mending to do. A saddle has lost a rivet. Someone's boot needs resoling. One of the goats appears to have fallen in love with a sack of barley and must be gently but firmly dissuaded. Still, there's room for slow moments. You sit beside an elder today, her hands working a spindle with more grace than your entire body. She tells you about a time the river froze so hard they used it as a road. A man rode across it in the night, chasing a runaway bride and 4 stolen sheep. He got the sheep back, she shrugs, but not the bride. You laugh. She doesn't. You're not entirely sure it was a joke. Later, you learn how to prepare salted meat strips for drying. It's harder than it looks. The knife slips, the salt stings, and your cuts are far from elegant. Still, someone pats your shoulder and says you'll starve slightly less this winter. High praise. By noon, the sun is sharp and clear. Children chase each other in and out of the gers wielding sticks as imaginary lances. Two of them argue over who gets to be the Khan. The loser settles for being a famous goat. You're invited to sit for a portrait. Not with paint, no one's got time for that. With thread. A teenage girl is making a tapestry of the current camp, and you're now part of the scenery. You ask if she's going to make your nose that big on purpose. She doesn't answer, but the smirk says everything. Someone starts boiling milk for curds. Someone else takes out a battered instrument, a two-stringed horsehead fiddle, and starts tuning. The notes come slow, tentative, but eventually a tune forms, melancholic, wandering, full of long pauses and strange loops. Historians still argue whether these melodies were passed down formally or shaped by landscapes and moods alone. But this one feels like it's being invented right now, just for this afternoon, just for you. As the sun tilts west again, you sit near the drying racks, letting the smell of salted fat mix with fire smoke and dust. It shouldn't be pleasant. It is. You realize this place, this life isn't built for efficiency. It's built for rhythm. And today the rhythm is slow. Like the wind, like the stories, like the spool in the elder's hands. The wind changes. It doesn't howl or roar. It simply shifts direction, brushing your face from a different angle, carrying with it the subtle perfume of juniper and something distant. You glance toward the horizon and see it a small dust plume in the east. Riders. You're not alarmed. Neither is anyone else. This isn't a raid or a rescue. This is expected, anticipated even. The visiting clan arrives like a swirl of familiarity and novelty. Faces you almost recognize, horses you definitely do. They're shouting, laughing, the ceremonial ignoring of each other before the joyous hugs. The dogs bark themselves into exhaustion. And suddenly the camp doubles in size. Gers sprout like mushrooms after rain. Children compare bruises. A man insists you try his fermented curd, which tastes like someone challenged milk to a duel and milk lost. You gag. He slaps your back and beams. Apparently, that's the correct reaction. The evening shifts into celebration without anyone declaring it. There are dances not organized, just sudden. One moment someone is stirring stew, the next, they're stomping the ground in rhythmic glee and others follow suit. You're dragged in by the elbow and spun until you forget which way your nose faces. A little girl offers you a string of beads. You wear it proudly even though it clashes horrendously with your coat. She tells you it's a lucky talisman. It works best if you believe in it exactly halfway, she explains, as though this is self-evident. There's an exchange of stories. Someone tells of a blizzard so fierce it made a yak cry. Another recounts a caravan ambushed by bandits who only stole boots, leaving everything else. The tale ends with, "And that's why my uncle always carries an extra pair." You're still trying to make sense of it when applause erupts. You notice something curious. Each clan seems to tell stories with a distinct flair. Some favor tragedy, others absurd humor. One group acts everything out like bad theater. Another sings theirs in chants so deep they resonate in your molars. Historians still argue whether these performance styles reflect ancient tribal identities or are simply the result of competitive boredom. Either way, they're mesmerizing. Later that night, the two oldest men from each group sit shoulder to shoulder, drinking in synchronized silence. No words pass between them, just long sips, deep sighs, and the occasional satisfied grunt. They're not talking, but they're definitely communicating. You sit nearby, eavesdropping on nothing, and find it oddly soothing. The moon rises fat and full, as if trying to squeeze more silver into the sky. Shadows stretch, fires burn lower, and someone brings out a drum. It's not a party now. It's a ritual. Not formal, not announced, but still sacred. The beat is slow, earthy, almost heartbeat-like. It calls something out of the bones, something older than language. People begin to hum, not in unison, but in harmony. You don't join in, but you feel it. In your chest, your ribs, your teeth. You've never felt more connected to strangers, to silence, to stars. The next morning, the visitors are gone. Not entirely vanished, just dispersed. Some moved on before the sun finished yawning. Others packed slowly, exchanging nods and leftover goat ribs, and promised vague reunions before the rain's return. A few remained behind, weaving into the daily rhythm like they were always part of it. You notice the space they leave behind, like footprints in frost. But the camp doesn't pause. There's wool to be spun, tools to be oiled, and animals to count twice, just to be sure that particularly mischievous lamb hasn't joined another flock out of sheer curiosity. You help mend a saddle today. The leather is sun-worn and stubborn, like it remembers too many long rides. You hold the awl while an older boy shows you how to punch holes not too close, not too far. He tells you his horse once refused to cross a river until he sang to it. You ask what song, he shrugs. Didn't matter, just had to sound confident. Later, you're sent to gather dung. Yes, dung? It's not glamorous, but it's fuel-dried, crumbled, efficient. You carry a rough-woven basket and trudge through the grazing fields, dodging curious goats and flapping birds. You develop a system pick-toss move. Soon your basket's full, your hands are earthy, and your pride oddly intact. Back in camp, someone has started making dumplings. You're roped in to help. The dough sticks to your fingers like gossip, the filling smells of onion and spices you can't name. You fold each one with care despite your first 10 looking like lumpy boots. You learn the trick, less pinching, more tucking. As the dumplings steam, you sit near the fire. The same fiddle returns its tune, now playful fluttering. A dog naps beside you, twitching in dreams. Someone starts braiding your hair. You don't know who, and it doesn't really matter. You're just part of it now. Historians still argue whether the Mongolian sense of community was rooted more in necessity or culture. But you've seen the answer in a dozen small ways: the shared meals, the borrowed boots, the quiet acts of care. Later, a young man shows you how to throw a lasso. You're terrible. You hit yourself in the face once. But you laugh, and so does he, and you try again. Your fourth attempt lands around a wooden target. Barely. Still counts. You receive no praise, only a raised eyebrow and a muttered not completely useless. You beam anyway. The day ends with a sunset that turns the world bronze. You sit atop a low hill watching it bleed into the earth. Below, gers flicker with firelight, smoke curls into the cooling sky. Children shout, pots clatter, and someone curses a stubborn sheep. You exhale. The hill feels warm under you. The wind combs through your thoughts. And for a moment, you forget where you came from. You're just a soul wrapped in felt, sitting in the gold light of the steppe. And it's enough. A new task awaits you the next day, helping to disassemble and move a ger. Not your ger, someone else's. A cousin of a cousin is shifting a few valleys over, and in this world that means half the camp shows up to lend a hand. You are naturally volunteered. You start by watching, observing the choreography. First, the felt is peeled off in layers, revealing a lattice of wooden walls beneath. It's like undressing a house. The roof ring, the crown of the home, is carefully detached and handed to an older man like a sacred artifact. You learn this is called the tuno, a symbol of the sky of unity. It's not just functional, it's spiritual. The whole process is fast, shockingly so. You blink, and the walls fold like fans. The wooden frame collapses into a tidy bundle. The felt gets rolled and tied. Everything is lashed with rope made from braided horsehair and hauled onto a cart pulled by an unbothered ox. The ger, a place of warmth, stories, sleep, and soup gone in under an hour. You stare at the empty spot where it stood. Only a circle of flattened grass remains. Someone hands you a mug of arag, the famous fermented mare's milk. You sip. It's fizzy sour and vaguely rebellious. You try not to make a face. Historians still argue whether the mobility of these structures came from necessity or a deeper philosophical view of impermanence. You think it might be both, or neither, or simply the result of a lifestyle that refuses to stay put when the grass gives out. You help tie down the bundles. The ropes bite into your palms. Your knots are slow, cautious. A small girl shows you a better method: loop, twist, pull. She's 6. You thank her sincerely. With the ger packed, it's time to ride. You're given a pony. It has one eye and a personality that suggests it has opinions on everything. It trots when you want to walk and walks when you want to trot. You bond over mutual misunderstanding. The journey is only a few miles, but it feels mythic. The landscape unfolds like a moving painting. Rolling hills, clusters of wildflowers, a fox darting between rocks. You pass a herd of yaks who stare at you like judgmental librarians. One snorts. You nod respectfully. At the new site, the whole dance happens in reverse. The ger rises, the lattice expands. The poles arch into place. The tuno is lifted again, catching the sunlight like a crown. You help pull the felt up and over using a hooked pole taller than you. It's teamwork. It's tradition. It's beautifully chaotic. By evening, the fire is lit and soup bubbles inside the reborn ger. You're sore in places you didn't know existed, your hands blistered, your clothes dusty. But when the cousin of a cousin offers you the first bowl of soup, you feel like royalty. As you sip, someone recounts a time when a ger was lifted and moved in the middle of a thunderstorm. We lost 2 mattresses and a grandfather, they say, chuckling. Found the grandfather, still missing the mattresses. You laugh. You can't help it. The stars are out by the time you ride back. Your pony is slightly more cooperative now. Or maybe you just stopped trying to control it. The camp twinkles in the distance, fires like stars stitched into the land. And you realize in a place where homes fold like paper and friendships form over sour milk, everything moves, everything returns. Even you. You wake to frost on the grass and a nose full of yak hair. Apparently, you'd rolled too close to the door flap during the night, and a particularly nosy yak had taken the liberty of sniffing your dreams. You sneeze. The yak blinks slowly, then saunters away with the confidence of someone who's lived on this land longer than the wind. Today is quiet, not lazy, just unhurried. The chores are lighter, the conversations softer. There's a rhythm to these days that has nothing to do with clocks. It's more like breathing in, out carry water, mend clothes, tell stories, repeat. You help patch a coat. It's old, possibly older than you. The woman guiding your stitches hums under her breath, and every so often corrects your work with a gentle sigh. You ask about the coat's history. She tells you it belonged to her grandmother, who once rode it through a snowstorm to deliver soup to a sick horse. You pause. The horse was sick. She nods. Couldn't eat oats unless they were hot. You decide not to question it. Later, you sit with a group of boys twisting ropes. It's oddly satisfying work pulling, braiding, twisting. The ropes smell of earth and sunshine. One boy tells a joke so bad it loops back around to being good. Something about a chicken, a bow, and a confused camel. You snort laugh. The rope unravels. He cackles in triumph. Lunch is dumplings again. This time they're fried crisp-edged and steaming inside. You burn your tongue on the first one. No regrets. In the afternoon, you wander a bit, not far, just enough to find your own corner of the steppe. You sit on a sun-warmed rock watching hawks circle lazily overhead. A marmot scurries nearby, chirping indignantly like it owns the hillside. You pick up a stone and toss it. Not at the marmot, just toward the horizon. It lands with a soft thud, the only mark in an otherwise untouched world. Historians still argue whether the nomadic sense of space was territorial or symbolic. You think it's both. Each place is held not by fences, but by memory. A rock where a child fell, a ridge where lovers kissed, a valley where thunder sounded like drums. As the sun tilts westward, you return. The camp welcomes you like a heartbeat, steady, familiar. A girl is teaching her younger brother how to whistle using a blade of grass. It goes poorly and hilariously. An old man is carving something into bone, maybe a tool, maybe a story. No one asks. You pass the yak from this morning. It regards you with what might be apology or mild disappointment. Hard to tell with yaks. Dinner is stew, rich, savory, spiced with something you can't name but wish you could bottle. You eat with your fingers like everyone else. Someone tells a ghost story involving a haunted saddlebag and a jealous sheep. It's surprisingly gripping. The stars come early tonight. They blaze like gossip across the sky. You lie on your back arms behind your head listening to the hum of insects and the low thrum of distant drums. Someone's still awake, still playing. The melody rides the wind like a secret. You think of folding gers and fermented milk, of rope tricks and moonlit laughter, of a world where everything moves and yet feels rooted. And slowly, quietly, the stars begin to blur. The next morning, the wind smells different. It carries hints of wet grass, distant rain, and something else, departure. You can feel it in the way people move with purpose, with calm, with a quiet that hums beneath their footsteps. Today, it's your last full day on the steppe. No one announces it. No one makes a speech. But you sense that they know. Just like the horses know when a storm is coming or when the air gets too still to trust. You help with the morning tasks, gathering kindling, fetching water, untangling rope from a wheel axle someone swears was fine last night. Everything feels both normal and precious. The youngest children are learning to sew. You sit with them threading needles and trying not to jab your own thumb again. One child insists you've done it wrong and takes the cloth from you. You don't argue. She's probably right. Later, you're invited to a short ride, which of course means 2 hours across open hills. Your pony today is different, older, steadier, but with a stubborn sideways glance that suggests it once outran a wolf for fun and still tells the story every winter. You ride beside a man who hums while chewing pine gum. He points out places along the way. That ridge, we buried a broken saddle there. See that tree, lightning split it. We still call it half tree. Those rocks don't climb them. Ghosts. You nod solemnly. Definitely ghosts. You stop for tea beneath a curved outcrop of stone. The wind funnels through it like a flute. You sip slowly, the cup warm in your palms, and look out over the land. The grass ripples, the sky stretches, and you wonder how many other feet have rested right here exactly like this. Historians still argue whether the deep Mongolian connection to land comes from religion, survival, or poetry. You think it might just be that everything matters here. Every hoofprint, every breeze, every glance shared over a bowl of milk. When you return, the camp is bustling again. Someone's painting a saddle. Another is baking flatbread on a convex iron dome. The smell is unfair. You want to bottle it, sell it, retire early. You're handed a small pouch as you help stir a pot. Inside dried curds, hard as rock, tangy, tooth-breaking, delicious. You're told to keep it. For travel, someone says. Dinner feels like a send-off even if no one says it aloud. People drift toward you with small nods, soft smiles, claps on the shoulder. Someone braids a red thread into your sleeve. For luck, they murmur, and to confuse evil spirits. You promise to never unbraid it. Night falls gently, as if trying not to wake anything. You sit by a dying fire wrapped in layers, watching sparks twirl like fireflies. A child curls up beside you asleep. You stay still so they don't wake. You listen to the lullaby of coals and distant laughter. And in that moment, you understand. Not just the folding of homes or the drinking of sour milk or the vastness of the sky, but the stillness that moves with you. The home that isn't a place but a rhythm. A drumbeat that says, you were here, you are always welcome.